This is the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesday webcast for April 20th, 2022.
Welcome, 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 beloved community. We are back again with yet another installment of the People's Water Board Coalition's Water Wednesdays webcast. And as you know, we have had very, very esteemed guests on our show. And again, we have another esteemed guest that I would like to introduce to all of our viewers. We are here today to talk about a resolution that is involved in part of the public trust packet on groundwater and how it can help our communities. And to speak about that, we have State Representative Padma Kuppa here. Thank you so much for being here, Representative Kuppa. We really appreciate it. And my co-host and I, Valerie Jean Blakely, would like to just ask you a few questions and find out about this resolution that you're introducing.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here and really glad to be able to highlight the importance of organizing and engaging on the importance of water as a public trust and protecting our sacred water.
You know, it's really important that we're having this conversation, especially here in Michigan, because our groundwater is under attack on so many levels. So this work that you all are doing and put together for this public trust resolution is important to all of us. Everybody has a vested interest in it. So it's a short show, so we're going to get right started. You want to start off by telling us what is the public trust resolution?
So so first, what is public trust? It actually started in Roman times, where they essentially said the public trust doctrine is from Roman times and essentially states that our seashores, running water, air are all right to the public and should be protected and available for public or common use. Why do we want to talk about, especially in Michigan, talk about public trust and making, there are many organizations that are doing this work. For Love of Water or Flow, Clean Water Action, Sierra Club, Michigan League of Conservation, but there's so many, as well as People's Water Board. And the reason is that there are many acute and chronic threats to the waters in our Great Lakes Basin. And there is a world water crisis. It's not just our infrastructure, but it's also how we protect our groundwater. And so making sure that we take action that would allow the water in our ground, not just the ones, not the water just in our beaches or our lakes, but to actually protect our groundwater and make this invisible water supply also visible.
That was a whole theme of World Water Day. Yeah, that was a whole theme of World Water Day, which we were so thrilled when we found out because of this, because all the stuff being introduced here, all the bills being introduced to protect groundwater. We were like, oh, this is just great. This works out so good. We did a whole week kind of teaching people and learning ourselves more about groundwater and how to protect it. Why did you become concerned about groundwater? What situation were you in that you said, oh, wait a minute, we really need to protect this?
So I actually come from an immigrant community. My family moved here when I was little from India. My parents came to study, and I don't remember what it was like when I was there as a, pre-kindergarten student or child. But I came here and started kindergarten. Of course, from that point on, for the next 11 years, I never thought about water other than that it came out of the tap and you could drink it. And that it was clean and that you had to brush your teeth and you take a bath and you had to conserve it. You didn't keep the water running and you were, it's a sacred source. It's one of our sacred elements as a Hindu. And so I just knew to protect it and learned in school about environmental protection and, learned about American democracy. But then when I was 15, my parents took me to India. And that was just eye-opening for me, because you could not open a tap and get water. You had to buy water. It was a commodity and it was available to those who could afford it. Public water was available like 2 hours a day in our city, the city of Hyderabad. Even now, I think it's even less. And so I think what it did to my life to not have access to clean water on a daily basis, not to be able to take a hot shower because we had to do storage and do all sorts of things and jump through so many hoops. So I really understood the importance of clean, safe drinking water, of having access to running water. I got to see parts of rural India where, people didn't even have that they had wells, and sometimes the wells were, salinated. One of my uncles had actually worked on desalination. You can see what, in any developing nation, what has been left behind for the people there, whether it's through colonization or whatever, what they have been left behind with and what they have to fix. So then when I came back as a foreign student, I came back, it was one of the things I felt like, oh my God, I'm home, right? Because I came back to America where I'd grown up. But I also recognized that what we have is dear and that we must protect it. When something that you really value is taken away, when you realize the importance of something that you have and it's taken away from you, you really appreciate it better and more. And so when I came back, I made it a point to seek out things to make sure that what we had in America didn't become less. So I really fought a lot on public education, but water has always been critical because I'm a big Star Trek watcher. And if you remember the quote from The Next Generation, we are mostly ugly bags of water, according to the being from that episode of Star Trek. And so I think that's really
great way to just say, hey, you're mostly water.
Yeah. And so, wherever I went, family around the country, colleagues, college classmates, everybody knew about what happened in Flint.
Yeah.
And I was working at Chrysler at the time, and the young woman that ran, so I worked in the IT building, which was separate from the main headquarters. And the young woman, one of the people that drove our buses, was living in Detroit at the time of the water shutoffs. And, when she drove us from building to building, one day I happened to be alone with her and was talking to her. And she told me about how she struggled. She had to go somewhere else because they'd shut off her water. And, that started a whole effort for me to raise awareness within my colleagues and friends and, people in my house of worship and the interfaith community, because there's an interfaith leader in the Hindu community. Trying to get them all to understand. In fact, normally today, Wednesdays, when I'm home in district, when we don't have session, I'm usually at the Rotary Club. And we have this really phenomenal member of our Rotary Club in Troy. Her name is Aileen Heasley. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she works on water issues around the world through the Rotary Club. And so she started working on water issues locally as well. And so now she splits her time recognizing that we need to do. And she's been very supportive of my work, raising it up with her church community. When we met through Wisdom, the women's interfaith organization that I was part of, because we had done some work on water, again, around the Flint and Detroit water shutoffs, and really wanting, as people of faith, to engage. People are busy with their own lives, but they need to know. And so this is, I think, a really important piece of it all.
It's not even just that, they need to know, because we're all just really, unless we fix infrastructure and really, really work on protecting our groundwater in a serious way from corporations from doing terrible things to it. It's at all of our front door. That's not, when you're talking about water, we're all connected by it. And,
yeah, actually, I wanted to highlight, so there's two jobs I have. One is as a representative, but in 2018, at that point, I was still just a candidate. So now I'm always a candidate because I'm running for my next election, but I'm still I'm also a representative because the people of Troy and Clawson elected me twice. Mm-hmm. But in 18, when I quit my job to run for office because I was really frustrated about public education, but one of the things I heard at the doors from people, because I would go knock on doors and say, okay, I'm running for office to represent us. These are the things I care about. What are the things that keep you up at night? Like, what are the things? And so many people were concerned about Nestle in the district. And what happened in 2018 when we allowed Nestle to chip away at our water rights. They're water takers. We're water users, but companies like Nestle are water takers.
Actual vampire. Yeah.
And so the water bottling loophole in the Great Lakes Compact says that water in a river, lake, or stream belongs to the public. But as soon as a private corporation like Nestle takes water that rightly belongs to the public and puts it in a bottle and sticks a price tag on it, it becomes a commodity. And so this is, again, going back to my life experience, seeing water being a commodity. And I go to visit my parents every couple of years and my extended family there. And I don't think that the public trust law that we have has caught up with science. We really need to make sure that groundwater and surface water are part of the same hydrologic body. Surface waters are explicitly protected in the public trust resources, but the status of groundwater is not explicit and could be left up to the courts to decide. And that's one of the reasons that we really need to not only pass the resolution, but also pass the bill that we have making groundwater a public trust.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Also, I was noticing that you were bringing up your upbringing and your relocation back to India. And it's ironic because part of our series for World Water Week was to show a series of films on different topics surrounding groundwater, how people come into doing water warrior work. And we showed a film called Pani, which was about the very crisis that you spoke about in India. And I think it shows people that this is not just a urban issue. It's not just a poverty issue. This is a global issue.
That's right.
Surrounding our groundwater and drinking water, that it needs to be protected and held in that public trust.
Yeah, Pani is in the Indian language Marathi. Pani is a word that's used in many languages in India, but not my mother tongue, which is Telugu. But this Indian Marathi language film was really important, and it was just talks about the Earth's water supply, how it's running out, and maybe that there'll be water wars. There's actually a book by a New York Times journalist called May You Be the Mother of 100 Sons. It's like a blessing that people have in certain traditions. Sons being the ones that carry on your family name. But Elizabeth Buemiller basically said that she saw the biggest crisis in India is around water. And I read that about 20 some years ago. Yeah. So it's always stayed with me as an important issue to speak up about.
Yeah. Now we, Mama Lila Cabell, she's one of the founders of the People's Water Board here in Detroit, and she passed a year or so ago, and we deeply miss her. But she always would say, she said it every day, that the commodification of water is the worst thing that we could have ever done to ourselves and the earth. That it just that it was pure evil in her mind. And then a few years ago, we hear the CEO of Nestle very publicly say that water isn't a human right. You don't have a human right to water, which was, and he was just like so stark into it. And that's when it became so clear to me that that we were going to have to fight for that right probably until the day we died, for our children to have that right. We were going to have to fight for it. And it was that important to spend our lives on it. And of course, that's what we do every day. What do you think this resolution would mean for Michigan residents, for us and the and all the different tributaries and things here in Michigan?
So I think that by passing it, we would protect not only the public trust that's in the Great Lakes Compact, but expanding it to include groundwater would allow us to protect and would allow the public to protect the water. So if anyone misuses, mishandles, pollutes, the public would have recourse. Because the public trust, the Great Lakes Compact doesn't include groundwater, whoever's in the courts, and we've already seen that the courts are open, the laws are open to interpretation by the courts. And so it's really important that citizens should have rights over the resources that we have, that these are resources that are ours as citizens of Michigan. And so making sure that we protect our Great Lakes and the groundwater that we are walking on.
Would it stop, would it like regulate the companies, like, it's not Nestle here in Michigan anymore, it's Blue Triton, right? Yeah, so I think they just switched names, obviously.
Yeah, so actually I'm going to refer to For Love of Water. I need to pull up their list. One of the things that they say is, what is so compelling about the public trust is that it is an existing source of legal authority that places affirmative duties on government to prevent the impairment of public waters and related natural sources and their uses. So it could be navigation, could be commerce, fishing, drinking, recreational, ecological importance. But it allows citizens to enforce the government to use that authority, and can enforce government to do something when government actually refuses to act or takes action that results in harm or potential harm that exceed the boundaries set by the public trust. So it gives, I'm government now, right, as an elected, but if I'm not doing something, and more than just me, it is all the members of the legislature, all the members of the executive branch, if we are not responsible and do not do the things that are needed to protect our groundwater, it allows citizens then to ask and demand and enforce government to do something.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer. So it's been hard trying to learn legal terms. But I would go to For Love of Water. The executive director, Liz Kirkwood, has been a great mentor to me. Like I said, so many people I can talk about who have helped, guided, and assisted me in my journey on how to advocate for water for all. Traverse City actually introduced a resolution that the city government passed, saying that water.
Liz just was on our show to talk about it. She told us about it. It's the most wonderful thing. We just had Liz on last month to talk about the
the World Water is a Human Right resolution.
Yes.
And we work very closely with Flo as well.
Yeah, they're a member of the People's Water Board Coalition, so we get to work really closely with them, and they do such beautiful research, and really they hold those folks' feet to the fire, and we appreciate that so much.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing, right? As a lawmaker, I represent 100,000 or 90,000 people in a district. I have people from my district who weigh in, but having nonprofit organizations, nonpartisan organizations who have the scientific and legal research underpinning their work is so important also to legislators and to government to do its job properly.
And to organizers and activists, because we couldn't do the work that we do. We can't organize large marches and legislative days and all of these things without that research, without showing it. Flow and oil and water don't mix are good for that.
Yeah.
We really appreciate them.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to talk over you, Nicole. Was you about to say something?
Oh, no. I was just agreeing. That's all. Oh, okay. I was just agreeing that work is very vital to what all of us do, because it gives us empirical data to back up what we're saying and what we're fighting for.
Yeah. The what kind of steps can people take to push for this resolution to be passed? And so
the resolution was actually passed unanimously because it's not binding. Okay. And that's one of the challenges, because a resolution is not as good as it raises awareness. It gets people on record to say that they support, these things. The public trust, to protect public trust resources, Yusuf Rabi and Lori Pahatsky and Rachel Hood were part of the legislation that accompanies this. And so House Bill 5953, 5954, and 5955, introduced by my three colleagues, Representative Rabi, Representative Hood, and Representative Pahatsky, would do this, and they would provide for the protection, conservation of water. And that package of bills on March 22nd was referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation in the House. The chair of that committee is Representative Gary Howell, who's a Republican in the majority. So if the majority are willing to give a bill a hearing, it advances.
Okay.
They are not, and they have a number of bills that are in front of this committee, but they don't always give all the bills. You've heard the term die-in committee.
Mm-hmm.
So when lots of bills are referred to a committee and the chairman or the leadership of the chamber are not interested in advancing any particular policy, the bills will die in committee. And so we want awareness. So you can call Representative Howell. You can email Representative Howell. You can, as an organization, especially request a meeting with Representative Howell and also with other members of the Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation Committee. The vice chair from the majority is Representative Gregory Markkinen. I find him to be a great ally, as well as Representative Howell, who's big on conservation. Representative Markkinen actually introduced a bill to remove the cap on distributed generation because he's from the 110th district in the Upper Peninsula. And I know some of the organizations you probably work with that are part of your coalition, like Michigan United, they have been pushing for his bill to get a hearing, the one on removing the cap on distributed generation. The ranking minority vice chair, the ranking Democrat on the committee is Bill Sowerby. You can reach out to him as well. The other members of the committee are Beau Lefebvre. Representative Lefebvre is from the 108th district. Representative Gary Eisen, Representative Rodney Wakeman, Representative David Martin, Representative Sarah Cambensi, and Representative Abraham Ayash. What I find fascinating is there's only one woman on that whole committee.
Mm.
Yeah.
So just, I'm trying to think of there is not to be a commercial for a particular beer company. There was a beer company that sold glasses, and for every glass you bought, they would give money to help women in developing nations get access to water.
Oh.
And so it's just an interesting thing. But I think having more women vote, having more women in office, we are half the population. And so having a committee that only has one woman, kind of like, I didn't realize that till just now as I was reading the names off to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we do, especially when it comes to natural resources, we're natural protectors of such a thing. And we're natural protectors of life, and women and certainly in Anishinaabe culture, they carry the water, and in different indigenous cultures, they carry the water. So we're natural protectors of it. It's too bad that there's only one woman, and we need to change that. All the women out here listening to that, go run for office and change that.
Yes.
It's just it's so refreshing to have all these bills being passed. And I think that we could honestly just put together some social media things and just ask a whole bunch of people to just start calling and emailing and just pushing for it. Because it's really on all of us to make sure that it happens.
And it's interesting because we respond as representatives, we respond best to when our constituents reach out to us. But it's also important for us to listen to stakeholder groups with knowledge, like For Love of Water or League of Conservation Voters. So having coalitions like the People's Water Board and so many other stakeholder groups involved in this is also helpful. And to sit down with them and just have a good conversation of why, because I think everybody wants to do the right thing for the future generations that come after us. It's not just, the here and the now, but I do think that term limits harms that, because you're not able to, in 3 terms, by the time you learn something, you're in your second term already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how to interact and develop relationships with the organizations in this space. I'm in my second term and we've never had this serious conversation about water until now. Right.
Well, certainly we're happy to have facilitated that and made
right. But I'm just saying, I think
Yes.
there's 110 of us on the House side and there's 38 on the Senate, and how many more legislators y'all need to reach. And so there's a revolving door in Lansing. By the time you build that relationship and explain the importance, that person might be out the door because they finished their 3 terms in the House. And so I think it's really important to understand the challenges in Lansing that term limits creates for us in getting people to understand the importance. I was lucky, I think, because I came in with such a passion about water. But I don't know about a lot of other things, and I've had to learn. And you have to be open to learning and listening and engaging with stakeholders, with constituents on all these issues to help our state be the best.
Yeah.
I think Michigan's the best.
I'm a big fan too. I really love Michigan.
It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. We did have Yusuf on. He was our first representative to start talking about the public trust resolution. So we had him on last month. It might have been the month before. And we've had quite a few, but we've been reaching out because we even the folks that aren't necessarily for it, those really are the folks we need to talk to and tell them why it's important. And stories like yours, where you had this personal experience that said, hey, this reduces my quality of life when I don't have access to water. This is terrible, right?
And people move to Michigan because of quality of life, right? I came here to make cars, but I stayed for the lakes. I tell people. And the people come, we have a $25 billion tourism industry. Like when the pandemic happened, people went to the great outdoors.
Yeah.
And of course, we have one of the best. I mean, we have so much coastline. We have the Sleeping Bear Dunes. We have, like I could just keep going. We have, you've been to Lumberman's Monument in Escoda? Oh my gosh, it's one of the most beautiful places in the state. They have these wooden steps that go down. So there's so many places that rely on good water. And if we don't have good water for you to drink out of your tap, and we don't have, if people's byword about Michigan is Flint,
we're all Flint. Right now, we're all Flint.
Right. And so we can't.
We got rotten pipes throughout the entire state, throughout the whole nation.
Country. Around the
Yes,
country. We have wooden. It's another thing that people don't realize. We did an infrastructure town hall on Monday, and Water Resources Commissioner Jim Nash came to speak. And he was talking about how we get federal funding to match state funding for roads. But for water infrastructure, we've never had that. This current Infrastructure and Jobs Act that we have is the first time that we've had federal money into, be invested to build up and fix our failing water infrastructure. And that's just, the beginning of fixing it, because we haven't had national level investment like this, federal level investment. And states are, constantly going to local communities to ask for, for money, but we really, we have to look at, we spend less on roads than most of the states surrounding us. And people wonder why we want to fix our roads. Well, it's because we didn't put the money in. I mean, everybody has a house or a car or any kind of property. You need to fix it. Even, you need to maintain it. And so I mean, people get a haircut. That's maintenance for your hair.
Right.
That's all right. So
True.
everybody
That's-
maintains something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so,
That it's completely bizarre to me that we have money to spend on all kinds of stuff, but we never, we did water infrastructure once and just never put back into it. Like it's the most, it just never made any sense to me because it's the most important thing. And then you've got people and I know we've got to wrap it up because it's about to be time, but then you've got people living in Alabama who haven't had water infrastructure ever, like ever. And that's, it's in the United States of America. It doesn't make any sense that they're still to this day fighting for even, any way to get clean, affordable water to the people in different parts of Alabama. It's mostly, and Mississippi, the same thing. Most bizarre thing to me ever. It's like shooting yourself in the foot as a whole society.
Yeah.
As a society, you have to have access to those things.
Society.
So please call your representatives that I listed. Whoever your representative, learn who your state representative and your state senator are. Make sure that they are people who are willing to meet with you and talk to you about water and what is the public trust doctrine. I think this is a bipartisan deal, the Great Lakes Compact, and just including groundwater in that as a public trust, as part of the public trust, is essential to protecting our water.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and that you and your colleagues are doing. It's going to make us all better. It really is. It's the most important thing. So thank you so much for that. And I want to thank Nicole always for going on this journey with me, and our background people, our tech people, and social media folks, Rosalind and Lou. Thank you so much. And until next time, my friends, try to take care of each other. Try to stay afloat.